idea of adding elements of improvisation and sort of chants and sort of making the performer sort of engage a little differently with the piece, bring this, there's such a rigidity, and I mean, having played so much standard repertoire in string quartet land and everything, there's this expectation that things should be always a certain way and executed a certain way, and there's a real beauty in trying to find your sound and your voice and the way you interpret something, a piece of music that's with all these expectations on it. But then I like to throw this other element in where it's like, screw all that stuff you just worked out, and like, let's throw in this other element that could change the performance from one night to the other, and in just the composition of the actual piece. It's hard to say it's about the civil rights movement, because it's not necessarily about that. It was more that I was looking at that as a reference in my sort of like, somebody asked you to write a piece, and based on whatever idea they would like you to write a piece on, and then you have to sort of like find your way to that place. And that was sort of how I found my way to that piece. I think that was the theme of that concert was like, what does it mean to you to be an American? I think they were going to do the concert on the I think the anniversary of JFK's death. I think that was what it was. And so it was just this sort of large question, and I thought, what is it like to be an American is such a hard question. It's like so personal and sort of a hard question for everyone. Some people harder than others. And so, and that's sort of, I'm like it's funny because I wouldn't necessarily call myself like, a diehard patriot. But, these questions get asked all the time, and I'm, so as an American, what is it for me to be an American? I mean, I look at, my heritage, my parents, and what they were experiencing and what I came out of. And so I feel like, in a way, it is a privilege to be able to do what I do. My privilege comes from my parents having fought for the things through the civil rights movement. My mom was very active, actually, and she was in many of the protests. And my dad, just being sort of a rogue artist, I think had some. That's an act of protest in itself. But it's just this idea that I came out from that period and from those, the political changes that happened during that time. So I just thought, okay, well, that's what it means to me, in a sense, to be an American. It's like I have been given this opportunity. Think about like what you said about American music and what sort of the tradition of classical music coming to America, and then what American composers have done with the music is so interesting. And I think I feel like there is this tradition in America with classical music to try and find other ways to connect to it that's based on American folk idiom, and it's always been that way. And I feel like I'm just jumping on the bandwagon and continuing on in that tradition. And I think it's really special and really unique to where we are now. And I feel like people are starting to see American music as its own thing, its own voice, its own unique voice. In relation to classical music, and I think that's really special.